So I'm watching a video Hassan Abi did. He went to one of these Trump rallies. And he's talking to the people out there. The people out there are telling him that they agree with him. They agree with Trump. It's just really ignorant of what Trump is really doing, ignorant of the policies at hand. People talking about Trump as a godly man, other shit like that. And I talk often about how I see conservatism shifting gears because the left is shifting gears. The left, look at when you had Nancy Pelosi and the House Democrats kneel with the cloth, the African cloth on them for a moment of silence for George Floyd. Would that have happened 10 years ago? No. That wouldn't have. I'm not sure that would have happened even 5 or 6 years ago. So Republicans, maybe they were doing it before. I didn't notice. I noticed now they're shifting with it. And I saw that first. I noticed it was when Ben Shapiro said that, yeah, George Floyd, Derek Chauvin should be punished. He didn't go into details, he should be punished. And he said that, it was wrong. And for conservatives in this era that are so extreme, that surprised me. But these are sneaky bastards. I don't trust them. Let's talk about this. They know there's a social shift going on, so they have to at least play as though they support reform. This is like in 65 when you couldn't use the N word. You can't use the N word in 65. You'll lose votes. But you can use buzzwords and code words that mean the same thing as the N word. You can't use the N word, but you can say things to mean the same thing. Welfare reform, stuff like that. When Reagan went to that town in Mississippi where remember the two white men, the one black man, Cheney, and they got murdered down there. And they were buried alive. I think they went down there to try to set up some stuff. People can learn how to vote, learn how to read so they can vote, learn how to count so they can vote and stuff. That was Southern strategy. That was wink, wink. Hey, white man, I'm with you. Wink, wink, wink. I'm not using the N word, but what else is down there but that? Look. So they have to shift gears and play the game. One of the white men was talking about how we all met after George Floyd got murdered, and we were like, "Hey, let's talk about this. Talk about what? What are we talking about, white man? We've been talking since George Floyd. We've been talking since Eric Garner, who was choked to death, who was just walking away from the police and was choked to death. Never resisted. Just put his hands up. Never touched the officers. Choked to death. That cop wasn't even arrested. Took them like 4 years for the feds to even, I think, look at it. So white man, what are we talking about? White man, what are we talking about here? We tried singing with you. We tried marching with you. We've done that. And I understand because conservatives are like 5 years. I talked about this the other night when I talked about America and denial, in that they don't want to move into the future because they don't have to. Historically, they've got everything already. So any kind of reform would mean them losing something, theoretically. If I've got everything, and you say, okay, let's reform, even if it's 1% of what I've got, even if it's something I don't even want, I'm still losing something, right? So most people don't want to do that. So when white people, when those people, conservatives, when they say, let's talk, well, we've been talking for 10, 20 years before you even got involved. We've been, you know what I mean? Like, we've been talking about this. The whole country been talking about stuff, and you're like, oh, well, let's talk. What? Look, man. We've been singing with you. We've been marching with you. We've been talking with you. We had Um, we had the Obama's 21st century policing, which you hated Obama for it. Where he talked about ending chokeholds. Minneapolis police signed on to that. That's right. That's right, white man. They signed on to that. So what are we talking about? I'm confused. What are we talking about? This is like if the fucking North Carolina general statute says I can't murder somebody, and then I murder somebody, and the police come, and I'm like, let's talk about it. Talk about what? You broke the law, right? That law was made 100 years ago. What are we talking about? The police ain't gonna be like, no, the police put me in handcuffs. Same thing. But they can say that let's talk about this to sound rational, because for white conservatives, they want to remain in the discussion. That's what it's all about. It's not about them understanding our point of view. It's remaining relevant. That's what it's all about. Remaining relevant. Like I said about 65. Can't use the N-word. Why? You lose votes. You lose votes now. So you have to learn how to speak, right? Same thing. That don't mean that they stop being racist. No. It just means we got to clean it up a little bit. And that's why I say I don't get into this racial shit. Because conservatives, they're shifting gears. We got to shift gears. I talked about it before. So much of the Democratic Party, especially in the South, is like this dumbed down shit. Like, let's dumb down politics and slow. Like, dude, I got my boots on. I'm in the streets. I'm not trying to, let's talk about what? What are we talking about, white man? Talk about what? We tried talking, and everything Obama tried to do, you opposed. I didn't say he did. Look, this guy Majority Report talked about this, how so much of the reports that you had, Justice Department, those officers weren't convicted. They were just investigated. So when people look at Obama's Justice Department, oh, that was great, they didn't accomplish anything, but it did what it was supposed to do. You understand? Now, Trump doesn't even make an illusion about that. But they would, but for the rednecks, for these white folks, they didn't even want that. They didn't even want it to be investigated. Nah, we don't even want to talk about it. So now we're making you talk about it. That's why I make no bones about it. There's people in this country that have to be hurt. They have to be. Because they are so disaffected and apart from the rest of society, and that's how they vote. They vote upon get back at the blacks. Put the gays back in the closet, put the Mexicans back over the border, put the woman back in the kitchen. Like, so much, and I just, like, that politics cannot be reformed. It can't. I understand that now. Like, there's elements of this country that are so far right. They're there. No matter what. Trump could be caught with a mile of cocaine on his desk in the Oval Office, and they'd be like, well, no big deal. Because it isn't about his merits. It isn't about the good of what he does. It's about a culture and a politics and a philosophy of cruelty and of hatred and of racism. Period. Trump fulfills those objectives. It's not about policy. It makes them feel good. Yeah. When I say policy, I mean like the civil rights bills, or Obergefell versus Hedges, the gay marriage stuff, or when they came up with that thing to where Trump can't go to war with Iran. That's policies. That's stuff that will stand the test of time. The New Deal, the Obamacare stuff. Like, that's running around talking about dishwashers and toilets is not policy, guys. I'm sure it makes a bunch of rednecks feel good, but it means nothing for most Americans. Nothing. I just had to make this video. It just, when I seen it, it just I could rile up in me Look, talk about what white men. What are we talking about? We've been having a discussion, but it just shows you how disattached from society they really are. It does. I go on these police forums and you're reading about people talking about if someone walks away from the police, it should be shot, and protesters should be shot. And stuff. Like this is deeply, deeply sick stuff, and these fringe groups exist. They are very real. That's why when I heard about the Michigan kidnapping attempt on Gretchen Whitmer, like that don't surprise me. Guys, I'm always armed. I don't make any bones about it. I make no bones about it. These people are. There is a subsection of America that wants civil war. Trump plays to them. QAnon plays to them. It's a real thing, and they pretend with the let's talk and because they once again they want to slow things down. Look, getting back on the subject. If we've been talking about this, and you had 21st century policing, Obama stuff, where all these law enforcement agencies agreed upon no chokeholds and no shooting at moving cars, and cops still do this stuff. I'm sorry. I think that says something about law enforcement, doesn't it? I mean, do you know when I filed on with the abolish to defund the police, when they had that, it was a guy in Pittsburgh, I think. Police pushed him down. He cracked his head. Old man cracked his head, and Trump was like, he was an Antifa. And I'm sitting up here like, I looked at his history, and I'm like, this dude marched against Vietnam. I'm like, this dude probably met Dr. King. I would love to sit down and eat lunch with that guy. Like, this guy was against the Vietnam War. This guy was against racism, and I'm sure, like, I looked at that, and I'm like, just like most stuff that Trump says, people he's against, I find myself 110% in support of. You had that, and then you had I think it was in Philadelphia, police cracked the man over the head with a baton. I think that was the one. And they charged him. Dude came out the courthouse, and the police were clapping for him, applauding him. And that's when I realized that, hey, maybe you guys don't get this. I did a video about this very topic, but maybe law enforcement, maybe y'all don't get it. Maybe y'all don't understand what and they always try to make it out like, oh, the communists, they're trying to make new laws so police can do their job. That's not true. That's not true. It's not the laws have changed. It's just you've become radicalized. You've become radicalized, and this has got to do with you wanting to dehumanize segments of the population, and you're on a power trip to where you think you don't have to respect people who are different than you. The laws haven't changed. The values haven't changed. It's like the law enforcement back where I live in Charlotte. They had a guy that ate coke, I guess, ingested cocaine and died of it. People were like making fun of them and stuff. The police officers have been cited for termination. There were cops on Cedar Post talking about how even back when crack first came out, they knew if someone ingests cocaine, they go to the hospital. There was no rules. There were no policies. You just did that. So this isn't anything new. This has got to do the segment of white society, especially, that just thinks they're superior and that they don't have to respect other folks' rights, respect, their basic humanities, that you're an animal. You're an animal. You have to be confronted and dealt with, and that you have no inalienable human rights. That's what this is about. This isn't, the laws haven't changed. You've changed, white man. It's your cruelty. You have decided that I don't have to cooperate with anybody. I don't have to respect anybody. And it's dumb what that guy did. It's dumb to ingest a drug. That's fucking stupid. It was dumb to do so, but he's still a human being. You're a police officer. We expect a higher level of responsibility from you. and something I always go back to when these police shootings, police beatings, is none of these cases are exigent circumstances. Eric Garner wasn't exigent. He was not fighting the police. George Floyd was not exigent. George Floyd was handcuffed and was on. They chose to put him on the ground and choke him for 9 minutes. This guy in Charlotte was not fighting the police. He was already in handcuffs. He told me he ingested cocaine, and they still took him to the police station anyway. None of these cases. See, one thing conservatives do often is, well, you're a Monday morning quarterback, and the police have split second decisions to make. None of these are that. You have a radio strapped to your body. It, it wouldn't take much to get an ambulance out there, and once you do so, you no longer have responsibility. You taking the decision to go upon yourself to use excessive force or deny someone medical care, it's an outrage. And I always go back to the George Floyd thing. If people hate the cops so much, why did they stand back when you were killing George Floyd? If all of us hate law enforcement so much, why did we respect you enough to murder George Floyd on Facebook Live in broad daylight? Because we don't hate the cops. Because at the end of the day, anybody who's not fucking bought in 100% to Fox News propaganda knows that most folks fear law enforcement or respect law enforcement, in that you respect law enforcement or you know they can ruin your fucking life. They know what resisting the police can do. They know what police can do as far as charging you with false charge. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to go down that road. Because guess what? You've got to prove stuff, and in the midst you're losing stuff, losing your house, losing your job. No one wants to fight the police. No one in their right mind wants that. So this is just right-wing propaganda. It's all of it's right-wing propaganda, and it's designed to skew the story, to skew the issues at hand, to make it to where law enforcement is this endangered class, this endangered species. Everybody's against police because, and it's also to make law enforcement a political thing too. That law enforcement serves the capital, and all of us are just underneath their boot. Whatever happens, us doesn't matter, and whatever they do is just. This is the fall of America. Thanks for listening.